Out of the ruins and rubble, out of the smoke, out of the night of struggle, can we see a ray of hope? One pale thin ray, reaching for the day we can build.
Your story, we welcome your words. And we know that that which needs to be heard will be heard. And that which needs to be said will be said. We give great thanks for this opportunity to simply be present with you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Josh. Amen. Thank you, Janub. That was just so beautiful. And I just want to say, when you were singing about, Lord save the people, God save the people, I was really hearing it in my mind. Well, what do we need saving from or for? And it's exactly what we're talking about today, is our idle thoughts and the blocks and the barriers to the peace that Jesus was trying to teach all of us. So thank you. Gorgeous. Okay, so I'm not going to be referring to my notes too often today. I'm really trying to be more relaxed about things here. So I will say, first of all, though, is that Josh and I, when we were preparing our talk for today, and we are also speaking next week, we kind of wanted to come up with a way that it might flow the best, and we decided that rather than doing two separate type of services, we'd really just want to make it more of a workshop. And so today we're going to be specifically talking about our operating system, our old beliefs, our ideas, and the blocks and the barriers to love's presence. So we're going to be talking about mind training a little bit. And next week, we're going to be talking about living in consistent truth and peace and empowerment. But unfortunately, until we're really willing to look at the blocks and the barriers, we're not really able to, at least it hasn't worked for me, able to consistently live in a space of peace and love and joy. So we're going to hopefully make that available to everybody. And so while we were sitting in the prayer room this morning, I'm like, okay, well, what if I just had to sum it up? Give me the words if I just needed to sum it up. And this is what came in, is that our hope is that we're just able to make our claim and plant our stake in the sacred ground of our inherent innocence. So that is my hope for today and for next week and for always, in all ways.
And another funny story about us being in the prayer room is as we were sitting here and my mind's going left and right and up and down and every which way, as it likes to do, all of a sudden we hear this song come over the piano, and I'm like, I know this song. And it's called Where Is My Mind? And I just love that song. So it was just kind of a funny reminder, all the different ways that Spirit just infiltrates our system, our operating system. But we can actually do some things to empower Spirit to be more functional in our lives. So I think Mary is going to tell us a little bit about what's been happening as of late for us.
Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff happening in our lives, and we have a lot of reasons to be celebrating. And so today, we just wanted to bring the idea of celebration and also just make this more of a casual type of presentation. We just want to have a discussion around what doesn't work and what doesn't work for anybody. It's not just that it doesn't work for me or for Josh or for Vern and Audrey or for Jessica or Ruth. It doesn't work for anybody to be successful and in a constant state of joy. And so we just wanted to have a discussion today about those ideas. But moving forward, things that we have had to celebrate. Well, some of you may have heard that Josh and I got engaged. Yes. It was beautiful and touching, and as you know, Josh, he's very sensitive and kind, and so it was a wonderful presentation, albeit a little confusing in the moment.
Story of my life.
Right? And then, of course, if you were here or have known us for a while, last year we were here about the same time of year. And, I think it was exactly
1 week to the day, actually.
1 week to the day. And I had seen the video of us standing up here doing the same thing, because I'm, of course, going to look at it critically and see what we can improve on. And I look stiff and like I need to go to the bathroom. And it was just really kind of uncomfortable. But the thing that was most uncomfortable is I didn't even recognize who was standing up here. Literally, I didn't even recognize who was standing up here. And I was so baffled by it that
I was like, who's that hunk of awesome man right there?
Yeah.
And she's like, who is that?
Yeah, so Josh and I collectively, over this past year, 11 months technically, have lost 140 pounds?
160
Oh,
pounds.
160 pounds.
Yes.
160 pounds. And so, yeah, that seems like a lot to celebrate too, right? And then what happened kind of concurrently while all this is going on is that, and it's not really because I'm an overachiever, but as you guys already know, we're ordained ministers, and I decided to get another ordination. And I did that because I need structure in my life, and I need structure in my spiritual life. And so for me, going through these processes just gives me the structure I need. So it's not about the end result of getting a certificate, truly. It's about me being able to stay focused and present with what my desire is, the desire of my heart, and ultimately that is the peace of God. And so this is just a means for me to be able to do that. So I'm ordained 3 times over, which only means that I'm really dedicated, right? Dedicated to healing. And so they were going to have a celebration for me. So the Living Miracles Center wanted to have a celebration for my ordination. And, when Jackie was talking to me about it and we were kind of preparing for it, I thought, oh, that's nice. And this is such a sweet idea. And, yeah, I'll have some of my mind training partners there, and Josh will be there, and I'll have all the support, and it'll feel good. And, yeah, why not? That was sort of my attitude. Why not? Well, as we were sitting there during the ceremony, Jackie was just so filled with beautiful words talking about my dedication and my devotion to God. And, Josh was chiming in about the things and qualities he sees in me. Joanne was talking to me about our connection and commitment together. And I was just overcome with emotion and a real deep feeling of, quite frankly, it was emptiness. I recognized in that moment that there was a part of me that didn't believe I deserved to be celebrated. And that even though I had agreed to be there because it seemed like the nice thing to do, and everybody deserves to be celebrated, right? Of course they do. I mean, nobody would say that they don't deserve to be celebrated. But I felt within me that I didn't believe that was actually true. And it was similar to an experience I had when Josh said to me one day, well, what do you think about going to look at wedding rings? And I'm like, say what? Because the wedding talk hadn't been on the table the first 4 years that we had been together anyway. I'm like, well.
Completely off the table.
It was off the table. It was, it was not even to be discussed. And, but I had been kind of softening to the idea and warming up to it a little bit. And so we went to go look at rings, and just how it all played out, the ring that I happened to be wearing was the first ring that I tried on, and really the only ring that I thought was for me. But again, I had noticed that when we went back to look at the quality of the diamond, right? Because that's such a big part of it. It's not that it's just pretty enough or whatever. You have to know what the quality is and what you're getting and all the flaws and if there's any flaws. And anyway, the thing is that we were back there and I was just looking at it and it was so pretty. Like, and it's not the perfect ring for everybody, but I just was like, God, this is so pretty. It's just, and I started crying. And I think Josh took that as a sign of, oh, this is it. This is the ring. It must be. She's crying. And it was half price. So that was the seal, right? But again, I caught myself in that moment. It wasn't that I was necessarily so moved that this is so beautiful and we're getting married. When I had a chance to reflect on it after I had the awareness of the celebration when I was in my ordination ceremony, is the same feeling I got when I looked at the ring. Is that I didn't believe I really deserved a gift like this. And there's a whole lot of reasons why I believe that I don't deserve gifts like this, or ordination ceremonies, or a beautiful, wonderful child. And I mean, I could just go on and on. But the real reason is that there is a place inside of me, regardless of all the work that I've done, that holds on to, it's the little girl that says, I've done something wrong. There's something I must have done wrong. And so, I guess I'll just leave it there and let Josh have at it for a while.
Thank you. So we're talking about our operating system today, and Mary is really tapping into a place that hits home, I think, for every single soul that graces this earth. And for me, I have a similar experience, and I guess since we did talk about how we've lost weight over the last year, I would really like to just touch on what this journey has been for me in that regard, looking at my operating system, looking at how I see myself in relationship to food, and how I see myself in situations where food is involved. And what's interesting, I think James Dillett Freeman said that ice cream is great when it's on top of the cone, but as soon as it hits your shirt, it's a whole different experience. And frankly, that's kind of the way that I have this relationship with food, and I've never really been aware of it until I started to really put myself in a position to challenge my ideas. And so over the last year, Mary and I have been on this journey of challenging our ideas. And so we have this belief that what we experience in this world is an outward picture of an inward condition. And until we look at how we can change our inward condition, the outward picture is never going to change. And so as we took some steps to change our eating habits, I was able to concede to this idea of eating meats, cheeses, and vegetables grown above ground. And that was all I ate. And I actually tried to prove this idea wrong by eating as much of meats, cheeses, and vegetables that I could get my hands on, with the purpose of proving this idea wrong. And I, in fact, continued to lose weight. I was 335 pounds, and I lost about 30 pounds in the first month and a half, 2 months. Within that time frame, I started to feel more energy. And what also happened, and I didn't expect this, in fact, if you would have told me this before I started the whole process, is that my appetite and my need for continually eating went from consistently up and down and regular to more consistent and stable, and less requirements for food as frequently. So ultimately, I just wasn't as hungry as often as I used to be. And I didn't really expect that, but then I found myself looking at situations where, you're at work, it's time to go to lunch. Well, now all of a sudden I got a half hour, 45 minutes of free time because I'm not necessarily hungry. And the people that I used to eat lunch with are like, where is your food? And they're always like pecking at me and trying to challenge what I'm doing. And they're not challenging it with malicious intent. They're just asking questions. And I'm sitting there concerned about the impression that I'm leaving with people about not eating at certain times, or in situations where I would normally want to spend the most money on food or eat the most or always eat last so that I was cleaning up after everybody else and making sure that the food was gone. Just simple ways that I had created this operating system of how I used food. Now, we're talking about just desserts, right? And we kind of play with this word, this idea of dessert. And what has happened is that in the last couple weeks, I actually hit the lowest weight I'd ever weighed as an adult. And when I did that, I thought it was time to get my just desserts. And so I went and I ate desserts. And I gained 8 pounds because I ate. And the interesting thing about me is that food is seen as the reward, but then what I'm really doing, if I look at it and I get real honest, and this is where the spiritual work comes in, folks. So this is where we have to get honest with ourselves and look at it objectively. When I'm using food as my dessert or as my reward, I'm actually setting up the opposite side of the coin. Because what I've done is I've made food my God. I've made food my peace, my satisfaction, my nourishment, my reward. And then when I act on that and I try and use that or manipulate that, I end up feeling guilty, I end up feeling shame, and I end up feeling empty because I had misused food as an idol. And so the quote from Freeman about ice cream being great when it's on the cone, but it's horrible when it's on your shirt, is very applicable for me in my operating system. I can take a completely meaningless object, such as food, totally neutral, and have it give, and I give it all the meaning. It's become this great reward. Oh, that tiramisu cheesecake from Biaggi's is just to die for. And then, here I am, full of sugar, gaining weight, wondering, what am I doing with managing my body? What am I doing? And so the work that we are going to talk about today and the work that we're looking at is saying to ourselves, we have to dig up this stuff. Yes, there's going to be some different action involved, but I'm not looking for relief, folks. I'm looking for peace. I'm looking for freedom. I'm not looking for just a sense of a sigh. I think it said somewhere in the song, no more sighs, but songs. And I'm looking to hear that song of God. I'm not looking to continually just sigh in relief. But what I've been doing is just getting that sigh. Until I start to excavate some of these thoughts, until I start to dig up what these things are rooted in, which Mary was alluding to, I'm just going to continue to seek out those sighs of relief.
Yeah, and if it's not with food, it will be in relationship, or it will be in some form of an addiction. I mean, it's going to come in some way. I mean, everything is a lesson that God would have us learn. Unfortunately, the truth is that most of the time, we're operating at a very surface level. Our consciousness is here, right? What I'm aware of right now in this moment. Ruth is wearing red. I'm a little nervous, like what's really happening right now. But what's really going on is what's beneath the surface. You know, you guys have seen that picture of the iceberg, right? Where you just see the little top part sticking out. And then if you go underneath the water line, it's like huge, it's like a continent. That continent is our operating system. And so we have got very deep roots and are incredibly tethered or tied in to what is happening in our beliefs and systems in this operating system. And so when I took myself back, I'm like, okay, I know consciously that I am love, that I am innocent, that I am as God created me, that I'm free, that I'm not a body. Like, I know these things on a cognitive level. But what is it that is happening when I'm in the middle of my own darn celebration and I'm feeling alone and undeserving and like a child? And what's really going on is that I have a belief that I've actually separated from my source, and that I should feel bad about that. That's what's really going on. If I allow myself, if I'm willing, and I allow myself to dive into that water and see what's going on underneath the surface. And then once I have an opportunity to start to identify the real thoughts, which aren't real, they're not real, but the thoughts that I'm believing, once I am able to identify those, then I'm able to then take it to the next level. And, Byron Katie would say, well, is that true? Right? She likes to
hold it up to truth, bring it to the light.
Yeah. Is that true? Is it true that I don't deserve to be loved? Is it true that I don't deserve to be celebrated? Is it true that I deserve, this outward picture of misery and suffering and death and on and on and on? Is that true? Well, no, I know it's not true. I know that at a higher level. I know that above the battleground. But how do I get from this place of just looking to above the battleground? Well, we're actually going to talk about that next week. I was afraid I'd get too far ahead of myself because I do that sometimes. So I'll pass it back to Josh and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
So ultimately today, we're just trying to set the foundation of being willing to ask the question. When I'm in my 45th minute of the elliptical, thinking that I'm seeing Jesus on every step, like the blinding light is in my face and I'm in a whole different realm, and everything in my body is saying, I can't. Everything in my mind is saying, you can't. I have to continually say, show me something different, show me something different, show me something different, and I don't know. When I keep thinking that I do know, that's when I quit. When I keep thinking that I do know and I listen to what my body is saying and I listen to what my mind is saying, that's when I'm done, tap out, get off the elliptical, and I'm done with my workout. But if I continue to say, I don't know any better, I don't know, show me, 20 minutes go by and now I am an hour into my elliptical and I've shown myself that I can do something that I didn't think I could do. And it's in that moment by moment, literally second by second, staring at the blessed clock on the elliptical going, I don't know, literally counting my steps and taking a breath every left step. I don't know. And just allowing myself to get into that space. And it's funny because we will go and we will condemn people on their behavior and we will condemn ourselves on our behavior. But when it comes to our thought system and it comes to our thoughts, we'll just say, it's just a thought. No worries, we're just thinking that way, or it was just a funny quip in my mind. But really, what we see time and time again is we have to watch our thoughts. I know Jesus was able to stop some conversations amongst the disciples pretty quickly. Even to Peter, his most faithful disciple, he's like, stand back, Satan. Because as soon as we get that thought in there, we need to be vigilant with ourselves. And it's not just about our behavior, although that's the most easily recognizable situation that needs to be corrected sometimes. It's also in our thoughts. And I would argue that it is even more important to have that level of vigilance in our thought life.
Yeah, absolutely. Our thoughts are really driving the outward condition. Our thoughts are what's happening in the mind, and then we see the thoughts play out on the screen of the world. That's really the only thing that's happening out there, is the thoughts that we seem to be thinking are just showing up. And Brenda really put the ego in a way last week that I really loved. I forget who the author was that she was referring to, but she was referring to a book. And we agree the ego gets a lot of different sort of connotations and maybe a bad rap at times, but really it's just a reflection. It's reflecting back to us what our current state of thinking is, what our current state of mind is. And so it can be very helpful. It can be a very helpful tool to say, oh, okay, I must be having thoughts of lack. I must be having thoughts of sacrifice. I must be having thoughts of guilt because this is how I can see it showing up in my life. And the truth is that We are inherently innocent, right? Like we can say that at this level, but to know it is a whole different thing.
I'm actually reminded of the story. I woke up one morning and I talked to Mary and I said, did you see those tire tracks? It was in the winter. I was like,
this is good.
Did you see those tire tracks in the yard, in the front yard? And she's like, yes. And before she could even go any further into her response, I was like, oh my gosh, can you believe the audacity of our neighbors to drive through our front yard? Because we have some neighbors that are kind of rowdy every once in a while, and whatever.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. But I was just like, I can't even believe the audacity. And so I told her that day that I saw the tire tracks, I walked over to the neighbor's car, and it had snowed, and so I wrote, in the snow, I do not appreciate tire tracks in my yard on their window of their car.
Which is a lot to write.
It was a lot. My finger was kind of cold, and I started to walk away, and I had this hint. I just had this little seed of doubt that maybe it wasn't, I looked at the tire tracks, and I looked at the parked car, and they lined up pretty darn close. But I just had this moment, and I was like, this isn't, I don't know. Okay. So I walked back over to the car, and here I am scraping this guy's windows. This guy drove through my yard, and I'm scraping his windows right now because I didn't know for sure. And as soon as I explain that story, and I tell it to Mary, she's like, oh, honey, I actually drove the car up to the front door so that I could unload the groceries without having to walk through the snow.
There were a lot of groceries.
And so here it is this picture of complete innocence, just taking care of of business, just taking care of the groceries. And yet in my mind, I've made this monumental story about how someone's out to attack me, and these guys have no respect, and there's complete disregard. And it's all just funneling through whatever this system, this operating system is, and it's all malarkey.
And I'm going to take a bow because I played my part perfectly. Right? Yeah, and that's exactly how the mind works. And we can always find a way, something out there, to point the finger at. Guilty, wrong, not nice, judgment. We can go on all day about it. And it is in the mind training of being able to start to, as Josh said earlier, excavate these thoughts and really start allowing ourselves to get in a pattern of, I'm sure what it really is self-discipline. I know that Jesus was very big on discipline too. Some people, including myself, have an issue with the word discipline sometimes because I have a tendency to fight authority. But I have found that becoming very disciplined in my path and becoming very disciplined in my mind training has brought me greater and greater accountability for what's occurring in my life, empowerment, and freedom. And it's just going from being dead asleep to like, I don't know why I'm always being picked on and why I'm always the victim and why people aren't always nice to me, and going from that to being very centered in, I don't know what's going on. I don't need to know what's going on. Actually, maybe I can just take it all back to my mind and start to identify the thoughts that I'm aligning with. Am I in alignment with truth, or am I out of alignment with the thoughts and the beliefs? And so that's really our daily practice. It's the work.
And that's the perfect segue.
Okay.
Perfect. So this week we are just talking about letting things up for question, letting things up for suspect, and not necessarily buying in hook, line, and sinker into what we know through our behavior and through our feelings isn't working for us. It's time to look at our mind, look at the thought system that contributes to that continual repetitive behavior or emotion or experience to say, hey, I am a point of power. I am the fulcrum on which spirit balances. So we have that opportunity. And so as as a way to catapult into next week, we want to go through a little short exercise, and we would ask that each person pair up with someone. Just pair up with, it can be a stranger, it can be a loved one, just one person.
We know
pair
you're
up
not
with
all that
somebody.
shy.
And I know it's uncomfortable. That's the point. Because we don't want to be comfortable.
Maybe Carl and Ella.
It can be someone,
Or
and if you could just kind of be able to look at them in their eyes.
oh, perfect. Yep, so turn towards each other, like really connect. We want you to turn towards each other, look at each other in the eyes.
Decide who's person one and decide who's person two.
Yeah, who's going to go first? And we'll just give you another few seconds. Oh, look at Vern and Audrey. Okay, so person one, I'm going to have you repeat after me these vows. So once we settle down, okay. Your worth has already been established by God. You need do nothing to earn it. Right now, the gates of heaven are open wide for your arrival. Choirs of angels are singing your praises. Without you, God's kingdom is incomplete.
And for good measure, person two. One more time. Your worth has already been established by God. You need do nothing to earn it. Right now, the gates of heaven are open wide for your arrival. Choirs of angels are singing your praises. Without you, God's kingdom is incomplete. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close up with a... Carl, do you want to just... Okay, I don't even know what's next.
I'm just going to close up with a prayer. As you guys know, Josh and I are fans, to put it mildly, of A Course in Miracles. And so this is a beautiful prayer out of the Course. The Course, I feel like, is just one entire prayer, but there are some things that are highlighted. So, I, who am host to God, am worthy of Him. I am worthy of Him. He who established His dwelling place in me created it as He would have it be. It is not needful that I make it ready for Him, but only that I do not interfere with His plan to restore me, my own awareness of my readiness, which is eternal. I need add nothing to His plan, but to receive it, I must be willing not to substitute my own in place of it.
And so we take these words, using this opportunity to acknowledge our role of willingness to receive His plan. And more importantly, willingness to not supplant His plan with ours. To take any meanings, any values, any expectations or anxieties that I would place upon a person or situation, and know that it is all for good. It is all from Him, from God. And although it may be uncomfortable, it is a learning opportunity for me to receive His love or God's love. And so we just anchor in this idea of being willing to open up. To not bunker down in the thought systems, built brick by brick. And to just simply allow the walls to be turned over. Knowing that there is truly only one presence and one power and one activity. And claiming our inherent peace in every moment as we recall that truth. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God, for the memory of love. Amen. All right. So now is that time where we...
A beautiful city, not a city of angels, but we can build a city of man. When your trust is all but shattered, when your faith